All right, this video, what I plan to do is to review some of the principles that I taught within coloring, how to start with color, okay? When I taught this, I was teaching 1-point perspective in the beginning. Now, the best way to teach this, or the best way to start this, as I understand, is that I show you how to draw a specific object just using, let's say, just one color, okay? And I'm gonna pick a pretty standard color. I'll use red, okay? Now, if we just draw a regular object, let's say a pyramid or a square or a rectangle, whatever the case might be. Now, with black and white, you've been taught to basically, within a space, go light to dark, okay? Number one. Number two, I've trained you that there's lighting, and lighting hits an object in a certain way. And then when the light hits the object, there's a light area, there's a medium area, then there's a dark area, and then there's an even super dark area for wherever the shadow lies. So I'm gonna approach this like a regular student who may not have understanding of lighting, okay? So what I'm gonna do in here is I'm just simply gonna start off going from maybe a dark shade to a light shade using this one color, okay? Which happens to be red. So, and I normally teach my students that first thing is to get comfortable with just that one color and being able to do what we call value variation, okay? I'm varying my value from the light to the dark. Things that go back in space get dark, things that come out to you get light. That's another, you could say, rule or rule of thumb to go by. In this case, what I did is I went from light to dark. Now, because I went from light to dark, I would probably go really super dark here and then fade to light, okay? That's, again, for those, we're not thinking about lighting, we're not thinking about, the way things go back in space, we're not thinking about that. All we're thinking about is going light to dark, okay? This would be like a baby beginner way of coloring, okay, you could say, right? But again, you're in high school, so that's why I want a little bit more sophistication in regards to, your value variation and your use of technique. Right now I'm using the blending technique. And all I used one color so far, okay? Now, then I tell you what, just to have fun, I'll go ahead and put my cast shadow over here. Even though, I didn't respect the light to dark thing. And I'll show you another one, maybe we'll color another one where I do respect the effects of light. Right now, I'm not respecting the effects of light. All I'm doing is I'm trying my best to, create something to make it look like a three-dimensional object, let's say. All right, so right now, all I did was go light to dark, and light to dark. That's simply what I did. Now, and what color did I use? I used the red. Okay, now let's look at the color wheel real quick, okay? Because this is now gonna help you to determine what other colors to use. Here we have red on the color wheel. Now, next to the red, we have purple on one side, and we have orange on the other side. Now, between these two colors, the darkest shade is purple, okay? The lighter shade is the orange, okay? So, in order to get darker with red, we could pop in a little bit of purple according to theory. And if we like to get a little lighter with red, we could add in a little orange according to theory. Now, what is that beautiful theory that we're talking about? If you guys remember, colors have relationships, okay? First, you have the primary, and you have the secondary. The secondaries are made from the primaries. We've already talked about that. Now, the relationships that you have, the analogous, the complementary, and the monochromatic, analogous are next to each other, and they're good to create blending. Complementaries are opposite to each other, and they're good for contrast. This is according to law. So what do? We apply the law. So another one relationship is monochromatic, where it's black, white, and one other color. Now, why do artists use this? Because they want to create a mood or they want to create a nighttime scene. Now, let's go back to the drawing. Okay, we talked about theory. Theory is very important when you're dealing with art. Now, here we've used red. We went from dark to light with the red. So, I would like to now introduce to this mix a little bit of the purple, because according to the rule, okay, according to the law, they say I could use purple to get darker, and lighter I could use orange. So let's try it. Okay, let's apply it. So I'm gonna pop into this dark area very softly, right up on top of it. Now, another thing too that you need to know is that when you apply the purple, and it's a waxy type of substance, sometimes it will go directly on there with no problem, and it'll allow you to add what we call a layer on top, a fine mist of that shade right up on top. Sometimes it fights with you, meaning that, like in this area here, I was fighting a bit to get it in there because I had already put down so much of the red that was there. That's the reason why it was having trouble going into that area. Here, it's accepting it quite well. And I'm just putting just a smidgen of that purple in that area to make it further knock back into space. Now, another thing, it's starting to look too purple. So what I'll do is I'll pop my red into there to push it further back to a red purple. Okay, remember, red purple means that there's more dominant red in it and less purple. And purple red means that there's more purple in it. Okay, so I just want to tweak it, bring it up a notch with the red so that way the transition will be a little bit smoother. Okay, we'll go from that purple red to the red purple to the red, and then so on forth to the orange. Okay, now so far I'm just working with that purple and the red. Okay, now next step, I'm now going to introduce into it some orange. And where am I going to introduce to it? I'm going to do it in the lighter area. Here I added the purple into the darker area to get it darker. Here now I'm going to add orange to make it lighter. So now I'll very softly place a bit of that orange into the light area. And right away, you'll see it, you know, when you do it on your own and in front of you, you'll see as soon as you put that color in, it's almost like fire. It tends to kind of radiate, and it makes it more interesting to look at. It adds a further dimension to it. Now, right there, I went from the orange to the orange red to the red purple to the purple orange, purple red. Okay, so make sure that when you're coloring, that's what you're doing, all right? But again, what technique am I using? I'm using blending. There's other techniques that you could use, like I've mentioned in the other videos. You could use hatching, you could use cross hatching, you could use stippling, you could use blending, okay? Now, this would be the perfect way to start in with color, okay? Now, I promised you I would do another one, okay? And I'll tell you what, this time I'll go with blues, okay? Blues to green to yellow, okay? I'm gonna be working with this color scheme right here, okay? That is, again, analogous tones. And I'm gonna make an object here, okay? I'll go ahead and I'll start with the mid-tone range. I'll start with my, my green, okay? And this time I'm gonna think about lighting, okay? Light hits an object, okay? We usually have a highlight area. We have the area away from the light, which is usually the darkest, and this should be probably a mid-tone. So I'll come in very soft in this area, almost negligible, okay? And then here, I'll go ahead and come in darker. And then using again, I'm just starting off using the one shade, which is the green, all right? And again, I tend to gravitate towards blending. You do not have to gravitate to blending. You could do your hatching, you could do cross hatching, you decide, okay? But this time now, I'm thinking about lighting, okay? Now on this side here, this area here should be my deepest, darkest value. So I'm gonna really apply a lot of pressure in this area, because according to law, they say that things that go back in space get dark, things that come out to you get light. And because this is the darkened value, the darker area of the shape that's away from the light, this area is going to be a way bit darker, okay? So right in here is where I'm going to really come in with a dark value, okay? Now, I'm not done yet, okay? That's, again, we're just using the green. Now here, I'm going to really press down hard, because that's where my shadow is going to be. According to law, the light comes in, hits the object, usually creates a cast shadow. Cast shadow is always opposite to the highlight area. So if the highlight's over here, the cast shadow is over here. Highlight's over here, the cast shadow is on the opposite side. So this, again, is thinking of two things. Not only the theory of light, okay, the effects of light, but this is also going into, you know, your value variation, your lights to darks is what we're working with as well. So we're hitting, you could say, two birds, one stone. We're dealing with a lot of information here, okay? So I feel bad for some of you who they throw you into my class, and then you're supposed to know everything. It's not going to happen that way. I'm sorry that they've done that to you, but art is a building block, if you ask me, okay? And you have to learn everything that's required, at least in high school, because you're heading off to college. If this had been an elementary or middle school, I would not sit here and worry about this. But many of you are heading off to college, and if you're studying art and you don't know this information, they're going to say, who was your teacher? Okay? And Miss Shaker's not going to come out of your mouth, especially if you don't know. But if you know what you're doing, my name is going to come out of your mouth. It's just, I feel if you go through my class, you better know this, okay? Now, I've just used right here, all I did was use green. That's it, okay? All I did was use green. Now, I'm not done yet, okay? Now we're gonna make magic happen a bit further, and we're gonna go ahead and listen to theory. We're gonna go ahead and try the blue in the dark area, and we're gonna try the yellow in the light area, okay? That's what theory says. So, I'm gonna hit up the dark area with some blue. You know, if you don't believe the theory, test it, okay? I tell my upper level kids, make the sketchbook your scientific, you could say, your exploration. This is where we make mistakes. This is where we create things, we get ideas and we try them out. Always try them out in your sketchbook, and then you could go further. Now, I just added a little touch of blue into the background just to get that a little bit darker. Now, I could even add in purple into that background along with some blue and really get some deep, dark, recessive kind of quality if I wanted to, okay? Making a more dominant blue-green. Always the dominant colors mentioned first, okay? So I'm making a blue-green right now in this background. So that way we have some nice contrast in between. If I bring up the blue, this dominant green will go away, so to speak. So that way I have contrast in between, okay? Can't forget about contrast. And I'm not using the complementaries, which in a few minutes I will do some complementary mixtures so you can see what happens. All right, so now here, I'm gonna go ahead, leave some white, because that's the highlight area, and I'm gonna pop that yellow right in there. But I'm hitting dark, and then I'm fading it, okay? Always dark to light, okay? Here also, I'm gonna pop a little bit of that yellow. And here I'm just going to kind of leave it alone. I'm not going to put it in there because there's no light tones up in there, okay? And I might even do a little something, something right there, little something, something right there, and voila, okay? That's the magic behind drawing, okay? Now, another thing, let's go back here, and let's show you what contrast can do if you choose to work with the complement. Now, what do I mean now? Okay, here we've got a predominantly red subject. Now, in order to, they say, by theory, if you want to make this pop, like, you could do two things. You can make the table green or you can make the background green. For right now, I figured, well, let's go ahead and do the background green, okay? Now, how do I know that? Here's the red across, by theory, okay, opposite two. So if you have something, a red object, let's say an apple, you want it to stand out and you want to know what kind of tablecloth you should put on the table, if you want it to stand out, okay, you would choose the green. If you had, let's say, a yellow banana and you wanted it to stand out, you'd use purple, okay? That's only if you want it to stand out now. If you want it to recede, remember we talked about warm and cool colors. That's another way you can go. Cool colors are the blue, the green, and the purple. And the warm colors, think of fire, red, orange, yellow. Red, orange, yellow tend to stand out, okay? And the blue, purple, and greens, they tend to recede. So that's another way you could go into backgrounds. Here I decided, well, this is a cool color, but because I put it next to the red, you're gonna have a lot of friction. People will look at this from a distance due to the fact that I've chosen green in this area against the red, okay? So there would be, like if somebody was walking in a gallery, they would probably come up to this and notice it just because of that, okay? So now you see the difference between these two and you see how strongly they compete for attention, okay? That's usually the friction between complementary colors it's used in order to create, you could say, friction or contrast, okay? Always contrast light against dark. And then maybe in here I'd come in with a very soft green to make it just subtly different than that background, okay? Very soft green, nothing too bright. All right, so hopefully this video helps you if you're learning how to do color pencil. Now you understand the ways to start and what colors to think about, okay? Now, any questions? You could go ahead and talk to me later about them, but this is the best way I know how to teach color, okay? And I hope that helped you. Thank you. Bye.